Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So I'm grateful to be here with all of you today, and it's been a joy seeing how things in Rishikesh have taken off over the last 6 months or so. And I will share a few points about communication based on the 17th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, 15th verse. This talks about austerity of speech. So it says, Anudvegakaram vakyam. Anudvegakaram vakyam. Don't speak in a way that is agitating to others. Satyam. Speak truthfully. Priyam. Speak that which is pleasing. Hitam. Speak that which is beneficial. Hitam jayat. And Swadhyaya abhyasanam chaiva. Recite scripture. Vanmayam tapa uchyate. Vanmaya is related with speech. Tapa is discipline, austerity. So this is called austerity of speech. So broadly, we could say that there are these 4 elements in this. Anudvegakaram vakyam. So disciplined speech. There are 4 elements which could be put into 2 categories. One is basically, Krishna says, don't be non-agitating. And be pleasing. So we could say this is like a funnel. At the very least, try to be non-agitating. If we can be pleasing, that's even better. But if we can't be pleasing, at least be non-agitating. And then Krishna says, be truthful, satyam, and be beneficial. Now there is much truth that can be spoken, but we need to consider what aspect of the truth is beneficial. Not that we speak lies, but that education means there is incremental disclosure of the truth. It's not that kid who is just learning 3 plus 5, we start teaching that kid triple integral calculus. Kid will get overwhelmed. So the truthful and beneficial. So we could call these 2 categories as be sensitive and be sensible. So sensitive refers to the emotional side. We need to connect with people's heart. What we speak should not be agitating or troubling people. So we need to be sensitive. So that's non-agitating and pleasing. And this addresses the emotional side, and sensible addresses the rational side. That we don't just want to be so sentimental in the name of being touchy-feely and soft. We don't speak the truth at all. We can go in political correctness nowadays towards an extreme where people just, in the name of not hurting people, are ready to entertain and propagate even blatant falsehood sometimes. So we want to avoid both these things. So another way to understand this, that this balance of being sensitive and sensible, is that while we are being sensitive, so it's interesting when Krishna is speaking this in the Bhagavad Gita, he's saying that both require, it's an austerity. It's not that this will happen automatically. So normally, whenever we use the word austerity involves to some extent regulation of inclination. You can use the word impulse or whatever. There is a certain tendency that, okay, by the way, sorry, I forgot. Do you have any grain or something? I had to break the Ekadashi fast. It's at 10:30. One particle of rice or something like that. I don't need to eat anything. Just one particle of rice. So, okay, I'll give you the example of Ekadashi so I remembered. So, all of you have broken your fast? None of you have?
I did.
Okay, so it's at 10:30 it is the fast breaking time.
Maybe glass of water. Just.
No, I took water yesterday. That's not right. Just some grain.
So it ends at 10:30 or starts?
It ends.
Ends.
Okay, so So we have a natural tendency to eat, but say austerity like fasting. So when so we have a natural tendency to eat, but when we are fasting, we regulate the eating. So nowadays in national economies, sometimes the government announces austerity measures, where they say that certain things will, people should not spend more money, or people have to, there are budgetary constraints. So there's a natural tendency to live at a particular level of comfort, and we may have to decrease that. So there's a regulation of inclination. So we have a natural tendency to speak, and Krishna says this speaking tendency is to be regulated. That's why he's calling it as austerity or discipline. So when we are speaking, we try to moderate our speech so that we can. Now the word moderate has two different meanings. Moderate at one level means to supervise, like we have a moderator, like who is a moderator for exam, that supervise. But moderate also means to keep regulated, to regulate, that to keep in balance, eat in a moderate quantity, for example, when we say. So moderate means avoid extremes. So both things are required with respect to the moderation of speech. So austerity is basically we keep moderate, and that in this case the moderate is, we can go to the same thing, the sensitive and sensible. We could be understanding this in terms of that we want to be gentle but not fickle. So gentle, we want to be polite and courteous in the way we function, way we talk and we conduct ourselves. But fickle means we become like a chameleon, that we just change our colors, change our stripes. We are with whichever person we are, we become like them. So that then we have any convictions ourselves? So we don't want to go in that direction. So with respect to, so if we are, we go towards one extreme is that we become harsh and hard. So harsh is generally with respect to the speech, and hard is with respect to the conduct in general. Like somebody is very hard in enforcing rules, somebody is very harsh in disciplining and punishing people. So when we do that, then this can come off as insensitive. So we would like to avoid this. On the other hand, we could go and we can become fickle. Now fickle can be at various levels, where a person just in the name of being soft and sensitive, that person has no convictions. What do you believe, what do you stand for? That person has no clear determination or intentions. What is it that, what is it you believe, what are you trying to pursue in your life? Is there anything like that at all? And sometimes in between, a person may not even have steady attention. So it's like you do one thing for one time and then move to another thing and move to another thing. So now whenever we are trying to do outreach, we try to reach different audiences, and we need to be, what will be gentle, what will be sensitive to that audience will vary. But so the balance would be more in terms of, we are firm in our principles and practices, and we are flexible with others. That means based on what level they are at, that what they can take up. So okay, we may wake up at a particular time in the morning every day, and that's a part of our sadhana. But if we are guiding some people, training some people, and they are not yet ready to do that, they're not, whatever reason they're not, then okay, it's not a 1-0 thing. If you can't do this, get out. It's not that we guilt or shame people or condemn people for not doing something up to the standards. So while to some extent this kind of discipline of speech is required for anyone who is trying to do outreach, it becomes especially important when we are dealing with people who have certain sensitivities. Prem, send me the document about your vision. So in your wisdom talks, it is mentioned that when you give the presentations, we should avoid triggering statements. So it is that people get triggered by certain things, and say if we know, if we tap somebody on the shoulder and they scream, what happened? Actually, I have a sore shoulder over here. If we know that, then we will not deliberately go and tap on the shoulder. We'll consciously try to avoid tapping on that shoulder. One time in around 2003 to 5, for almost 2 years, I was continuously sick, and they just nobody could diagnose what was wrong. So I had done many blood tests, and still nobody could find anything. So at one time I was admitted in the hospital, and the blood test was to be done, and the nurse came, and the nurse had to spend almost 5 minutes to find a place where the nerve was not, where the vein was not already pierced. Now she could have said, my job is just to take the blood sample. So if your body has been pierced so many times, that's not my problem. If somewhere it's already been pierced, it might be more painful over there. But she was sensitive. She saw that there have been these piercings on the body before to take the blood. So we should not do it again. So in general, it is just basic human decency that even when sometimes some pain is to be caused, we try to minimize the pain. If we can avoid it, that's all, even better, completely. At the same time, we cannot, if we are trying to teach something, if we are trying to educate someone, it's like our goal cannot be simply to make everyone happy. If our goal were simply to make everyone happy, we should start a ice cream distribution charity. So we are sharing a tradition, and some aspects of that tradition, some teachings are not going to sit well with some people, and that's because they may have certain conceptions which may be misaligned with reality. They may be having some behavioral patterns which may not be healthy for them, which may not be aligned with moral or spiritual standards, and at some time or the other we do need to talk about it. But so we want to avoid both extremes of being too sensitive, like to caring too much for the emotions and feelings of people, and caring only for the logic and the standard that we're going to talk about. Just speak the truth but not care for how it is impacting people. So finding that balance is a challenge, always. So I was introduced to Krishna consciousness in 1996 in Pune, and Pune was in India as well as across the world to a large extent. It's a pioneer in youth outreach, and it is from Pune that now many other places in India youth outreach has started. Now the leaders from Pune are also going to America to do some youth outreach. So the Pune also had a very conservative brahmachari ashram and quite strict standards. And when I started going abroad, so from 2014 I started traveling abroad. In 2004-5 when His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj was uh, finalizing the journey home, which he then after had published soon. So he had given me a copy of that book before, because I had written a few books before that, and I had given my books to him. So Maharaj probably had glanced at the books. He knew me as an author, so he said, "You read this book and tell me what do you think about it." So then I told Maharaj the stories are exciting, but what struck me the most was the tone of the book. You are not speaking in this book as a guru or as a teacher speaking to students or disciples. The tone is of a friend, like of a person, a human being, almost like a friend sharing one's experiences and one's insights from those experiences. So Maharaj told me, I appreciate your appreciation. So, so he said that yes, this is the tone required for Western outreach, and India is also becoming Westernized now. And if you learn this tone, then you can also reach a significant number of people. So from that time, I started exploring what is this Western outreach, what does it require, and why is this tone required for that. So in one sense, I was reading books written by, say, Christian preachers or prominent Christian pastors or Buddhists, mainly for Western audiences, where they're presenting their tradition, their spirituality. I read books written by devotees also, of course, and what tone they were using. So I learned a few things, and then I started. So in one sense, 10 years, I was mentally preparing myself. It's not that I had a conscious plan to go to the West, but from 2014 I started traveling, and till the pandemic, almost 8-9 months a year I was outside India, and after that also 6-7 months in a year I'm in the West, not just outside India but in the Western world. So I have focused more on English speaking countries, because I find that people find it difficult to translate what I'm speaking into other languages, whether it is Indian languages or whether it is non-Indian languages. So I went to South America, and there in Panama they had to translate. I found it very difficult to Spanish or whatever. So that's why I have not been to most of Europe. I've been to UK many times, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, and mostly North America, mostly United States and Canada to some extent. So even now, 3 to 4 months in a year, I go to 3 months at least. I go to North America, 1 month to UK, about 1.5 to 2 months to Oceania, Australia, New Zealand. So over the years, I've interacted and I try to understand what are the challenges that Western outreach is encountering, and to what extent we have been successful, and what extent we have not been successful, and what can be done about it. So I came to Rishikesh about 4 years ago for the first time. We have some devotees from Chicago who bring a tour to India of Western yogis and other seekers. So with that group, I used to be a part of Shaman Prabhu, and I used to lead that group as tour guide. So we used to go to Vrindavan and Rishikesh and Jaipur and other places. So at that time, I noticed for the first time, because in the ISKCON Sacred Places map, Jaipur is not there at all. Sorry, not Rishikesh is not there at all. So I had not come to Rishikesh, but that was the first time it struck me that there is so much happening in Rishikesh. And since then, it has been on my radar. Indradumna Maharaj told me about I met Indradumna Maharaj in North America. So he told me about what he's doing, and he says, in one sense, currently the biggest potential for Western outreach at any place in the entire world is in Rishikesh. Because of course we can be in New York, we can be in London, we can other places. There are so many Westerners, but among all the Westerners, to find out spiritual seekers is difficult. So Dhanudhar Swami had also told me something similar, He said that his maximum Western outreach happens in Vrindavan. He says, I sit in Vrindavan and people who are already seekers come there and I spend time with them. So there's a difference. Vrindavan is more bhakti seekers come. Here, more generic spiritual seekers, yoga seekers come. So I'm grateful to have the opportunity to be here, and that's why I started by saying I appreciate what all of you are attempting to do here. So I'll talk about three main things with respect to the sensitivity, what I have observed, and what are the challenges with respect to Western outreach for those of us who have been trained in the ISKCON culture of both practice and outreach, and what are the ways in which those can be addressed. And after that we can have a interactive discussion. You can share your thoughts and and concerns or any other questions you might have. So the first biggest problem is hierarchy. ISKCON is a very authority subordinate kind of organization. That the authority is at the top, and the way I was trained, the essence of spiritual life is following the instructions of your authorities. Now that is important, we all need guidance, but is that the essence of spiritual life, essence of bhakti? So traditionally we as a movement have worked like that. In the first generation, when Srila Prabhupada went to the West, devotees who took up the practice of bhakti basically moved into the temple and left the way they were living before. And that meant for practically for almost everything in their life, because their whole culture and lifestyle was altered, they were turning to the devotee authority, whether it was Prabhupada or the representatives of Prabhupada, to ask for guidance. And the idea is the spiritual master gives instructions and the disciple is ready to rearrange their entire life to follow the instruction. And yes, there is that principle, but there are also nuances. Braj Vihari Prabhu showed me a letter of Srila Prabhupada in 1975 is writing to one of his. He says that now that you are a senior man, now that you are senior, I cannot give you instructions. I can only give you suggestions. So one challenge we had is that we didn't have Prabhupada with us for a very long time. And how would Prabhupada guide devotees who were 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years in bhakti? So that hierarchy with respect to devotees guiding other devotees and also new people when we approach. So our outreach is been fairly successful in Eastern culture where the hierarchical structure is still present in society. In India, still fairly hierarchical. So when I was staying in America, I was hosted by an American family in Florida, and devotee family, and I saw the interactions, the way the kids would talk with the parents. I couldn't imagine ever talking with my father like that. It was shocking, and they're not being disrespectful, and they didn't take it. The parents are also not feeling disrespectful. I just realized this is just not the way we function in India. So in general, the Western is much more. There is authority, no doubt, but it's a much more horizontal relationship than a vertical relationship. And whether so wherever this traditional culture is hierarchical, we have been successful. We were quite successful in Russia. We are quite successful in Ukraine. And although Hinduism is still illegal in China, we are fairly successful underground in China also. So when people grow up in a hierarchical culture, they take it up to bhakti as we present it. But in the West, where the culture is much more egalitarian, it becomes much more challenging for people. So how much? Sorry. Yeah.
But is that the case in America when Krishna consciousness or Srila Prabhupada actually took up there?
What was not the case, you're saying?
The hierarchical society. I mean, it doesn't in a way for me it doesn't make sense. You say in these cultures was most successful, but actually Krishna consciousness was most successful in America at first.
Okay, so I'm talking about the present situation right now.
Present situation, okay.
So now, regarding that time, I think three factors played a role. First was Prabhupada's own charisma and saintliness, because of which devotees could accept that what Prabhupada told them to do. Second is that there was also a lot of adventurousness that Prabhupada infused. While Prabhupada gave instructions, but it was like in 1968 when he came back to America from India, when he had gone for being, while he was sick, he told his leading disciples, he had a globe in front of him and he said, each of you pick up one country and go and deliver that country. And then Jadurani Mataji asked, she said, what about us girls? Prabhupada said, we are not girls or boys, we are souls, you also pick up one country. So, and yes, sometimes devotees did radically reorganize their life to follow Prabhupada's instructions. But it's one thing to radically reorganize their life, like devotees went to London, the three couples went there. But then there they had, it was not that Prabhupada was micro-controlling them. There they were using their intelligence, their initiative, they had their autonomy. So because the movement was not so developed, so it was not that people were coming in the ashram structure and living and following the rigid rules. And that was, while that was definitely there, like the morning program was there, but then traveling, book distribution, there's a lot of element of adventure. So the discipline and the hierarchy didn't inhibit people, so I didn't pinch people so much because the element of adventure was very much there. And the third was that at that time, many of those American society also in the 1960s was not as egalitarian as it was now. So those who came to Srila Prabhupada in 1960, they were what they call the flower children. The 1940s they were born. So it is still a certain level of hierarchy was there, but there was this counterculture where there was the challenging of authority and rejection of authority, not because the principle of authority was rejected. It was more that the particular authorities at that time were seen as untrustworthy or corrupted or self-serving. In the Vietnam War, it was just for political purposes rather than actually any real American interests that soldiers were being sent. So many of those people had grown up accepting the principle of authority, but they were rebelling because the authorities were not being trustworthy. So when they met Prabhupada, who was definitely of incorruptible moral character, they were able to find an authority whom they could trust. But now current generations, they have not grown up even much in a society where there is a lot of emphasis on authority. So to what extent is the hierarchical structure integral to bhakti, and how much is it just one historical and incidental element of bhakti that became prominent at a particular time? So my interactions for Western outreach have been primarily with Radhanath Maharaj. I've interacted with others also to some extent, and I'll bring that in a little bit. So Radhanath Maharaj told me that when he came to India, because he was in America in New Vrindavan first, and then he was doing youth outreach in America, and around from 84, 85 roughly started coming. 89 onwards, he was leading the Chowpatty project. So he said, when I was asked to look after the community here, I had no experience in community building. He said, that time I started trying to get my hands on everything I could about Prabhupada's interactions with Indians. And he found that, he said, when Prabhupada would interact with Indians, many of them became life members. So with them, Prabhupada hardly gave any instructions to them. It was more of inspiration. Yeah, we are building this temple, can you contribute something? Can you help us in these legal issues? So with them, Prabhupada's relationship was much more horizontal. It was not vertical. Many of them were already well established and respected in society. And many of them were also, this is especially relevant for us, we'll come next part. Many of them were also following some other spiritual path. And Prabhupada generally engaged them in bhakti. So engage them means Prabhupada, there's hardly any incident where Prabhupada is asking them, are you following are you chanting 16 rounds, why don't you come for the morning program, this, that. No. Prabhupada encouraged and engaged them in whatever way they could. So in Prabhupada's example itself, we have, if you see Srila Prabhupada's outreach, we have his full-time disciples who have actually carried forward the movement. And then we had the life members. Now in many ways, this demographic has almost been wiped out of the historical memory of ISKCON. In most of the biographies of Srila Prabhupada and other places, it is the disciples talking about their life. Now, two reasons for this. Many of the life members didn't really become dedicated followers. And because they didn't become very dedicated followers, so they didn't play a significant role in ISKCON's managerial structure or generational succession or anything like that. So that's how they got lost. And that particular mode of outreach also has ISKCON and the next generations have not really continued the life membership program too much for various reasons. But with the life members, Prabhupada was much more horizontal than vertical. Now interestingly, if you consider the current demographic, mostly we have congregation members. And that means these are people who often have their careers, their families, and they have their social life, and bhakti is also an important part of their life. They are definitely much more dedicated than life members, but at the same time they are not full-time devotees. So we are in uncharted territory right now with respect to our institution's history, and various community leaders are also learning how much can they instruct the congregation members. So across India, each temple that I go to, I find that some congregations are with leaders who are much more giving autonomy, and the congregation do varieties of activities. There are many temples where the leaders don't give much autonomy, and so it's like in this particular range, this congregation is quite flexible. So the point I'm making here through this is that hierarchy doesn't seem to be integral or foundational to bhakti. So we can have more horizontal modes of outreach also, and that is what is going to be required for reaching out to Western people who have grown up with a suspicion of hierarchy, and suspicion, aversion, or at least reservation. So it can be go through various levels. The Western attitude towards hierarchy. It can be downright aversion. Where there is hierarchy, I will not go anywhere near that. Or it could be reservation. Oh, this is too much authority. In between could be suspicion. Reservation is I just want to be cautious. Suspicion means I already doubt whether this is there or not. So it's interesting that with such an attitude, we are trying to do Western outreach, and in many places, because ISKCON was founded by Srila Prabhupada and it was founded with certain values and certain ways of functioning, so conventional ISKCON temples have been spectacularly unsuccessful in doing Western outreach. Given the manner, if we consider, it's probably one of the most successful temples in the West, but Manor has far more Indians than non-Indians. I would say Manor is still trying to cultivate, and they're trying to cultivate, and slowly I think the Indian Western demarcation is also decreasing, because what do you call Indians who are born in the West? Like we met this yesterday, that girl Samantha had come. So she says that she's an Indian German or German Indian. She doesn't know even Hindi. So in India we call such people as coconuts. You know why coconuts? They're brown on the outside but white on the inside. So I know in New York there is one family, devotee family. So the father is actually the vice president of a temple in that broad New York area, and his son is born and brought up in America. So as his son has grown up, he started becoming reserved about the temple where his father is going to. And now, although his father is in charge of the temple, he actually started going to the Bhakti center because he felt Bhakti center was much more horizontal and not so much vertical. And after going to the Bhakti center for 3-4 years, he became more comfortable, and now he has come back to his father's temple, and his father also understood, because his father's concern was that, oh, my son will give up Bhakti completely. But then he wants to practice Bhakti on his terms. And once the father saw that the son is interested in Bhakti, then the father also stopped pushing him too much. And then now he's participating in the temple itself. So the point is that there is a challenge. And in general, it seems that the conventional ISKCON temples, it is difficult for them to do Western outreach. So that brings me to the next aspect, that is hierarchy itself is one aspect, the other is organized religion, or religious organizations, whatever you want to use it, word we use it for that. People are, there's in general some amount of reservation about hierarchy. Now my observations are largely based on America, so I don't know how much they apply to Europe specifically, so you can talk about that. Should I go to the next point, or should I complete all the 3 points, or would you like to have reflections before that?
Let me complete it, so
Okay.
then we can.
Sure.
I will also have to leave in 5 to 10 minutes. So.
You have to leave, okay, fine, so let me complete it. Thank you. So with organized religion, there is a lot of reservation. So I often say, if people ask me, do you belong to an organized religion? I say, spend some time with us, you will realize we are not very organized. Of course, that's just a dodge of the question.
But they are often referring to this hierarchy when they say organized religion. They often
I think
those terms.
Hierarchy is one aspect of it. So hierarchy generally refers more to the institutional structure. So that's then organized religion. But in organized religion, 2 other things come up also. Like there is strict dogmas, this is right, this is wrong, and there are strict rituals. This is the way to do the thing, this is not the way to do things. So organized religion also has what you could say a third thing, that is the institutional authority structure, and we could say but institutional managerial structure, you can say. So now you could say that the institutional structure also imposes the dogmas, the institutional structure also imposes the rituals. But when we are talking about hierarchy, it's more in terms of the day-to-day functioning, that if you have to do this particular service, you have to take this permission, without that you cannot do this, you cannot do that. So that's more like generic autonomy, whether it is there or not. And here it's specifically with respect to what you believe and what you practice. So when there is too much imposition on this, both when there are dogmas and rituals, that often leads to sectarianism. It doesn't have to, but it leads to. Right? This is the right belief, and by implication, anyone who has a different belief is wrong. And there can be different degrees of wrongness. So this is where in sectarianism we often get fanaticism. So, yeah. Now, or fanaticism, or the more common word nowadays is extremism. So not everybody who is a sectarian is necessarily a fanatical person. But so sectarian means we are right and you are wrong. That itself, there is some amount of groupism is there. But within that you can have exclusivists. So exclusivist is more in thought. That is, okay, actually let's keep this fanatics only over here. There are different terms over here. So exclusivist is, it's almost like we have exclusive rights to God. That our path is the exclusive path to God. If you are not following our path, not only are you not going to God, you are going to go to hell. So there is an exclusivist. Much of people's perception of religion in the West is exclusivist. So Christianity, whether it is evangelic, whether it is Protestant or Catholic, they do believe in exclusivism. Jesus is the only way. Now beyond that, there are extremists. So what exclusivists do in thought, extremists do in action. So exclusivists say that if you don't believe, you don't worship our God, you're going to go to hell. Extremists are actually much kinder. They say, anyway you're going to go to hell, why delay it? We will help you get there faster. So now organized religion itself does not necessarily lead to exclusivism and extremism, but it's like a slippery slope. When there's organized religion which imposes certain dogmas and certain rituals, then things can become problematic. Now within ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada did emphasize the Siddhanta quite a bit. This is the philosophical truth. So the Prabhupada does spend a lot of time and energy in his purports refuting Mayavad. Prabhupada even is not very appreciative of, say, mundane humanitarian work. And Prabhupada does seem to have certain, we don't use the word dogmas, we use the philosophy or Siddhanta, but that is there. And that can come off as sectarian for people. And then with respect to rituals also, no, it's like we in many ways ISKCON or Srila Prabhupada was among the pioneers who introduced Kirtan in the Western world. But in the larger Kirtan scene in the West, now we are almost a cipher, we are a non-entity. Within our movement, Kirtans, there are many devotees who are big Kirtaniers, and some of the really big Kirtaniers are treated like celebrities. But in the broader Kirtan circles, none of the devotees are very significant. And one of the reasons, many reasons, but one of the reasons for that is we are very specific, only Hare Krishna mantra. And in general, people like Kirtans to be a little more eclectic, different gods and goddesses or different mantras, mix it all together. So our Kirtans are also, for many people, they are a bit too noisy. So Radhanath Maharaj started the Shayan Kirtan in Radha Gopinath temple. Shayan is when the Lord takes rest. So 8:50 to 9, 10 minutes only to the Kirtan. But he would insist that this Kirtan should be soft and soothing. It shouldn't be, noisy is a wrong word for it, or rather noisy is not the appropriate word, it's ecstatic. But what devotees think as ecstatic, outside people think as intrusive quite often. So for Westerners especially, Kirtan is more of meditation. So soft, gentle, soothing. So the kind of Kirtans which you had over here, they're different from the kind of Kirtans we may have in the temple Guru Puja or the temple. Like sometimes we have these huge vampers, So somehow my point is that the way we practice certain rituals has alienated some people from us. So I know in one Western Outreach Center, they have Kirtans and devotee Kirtans. So devotee Kirtans are only Hare Krishna mantra. And for Kirtans, they have created 10-11 mantras, and they have Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya also they saying. And then they say Om Namo Narayana they saying. And then they don't go into Om Namah Shivaya and all those things. They stay to the Vishnu Tattva, but they also sing Om Purnamada Purnamidam. So not everybody can follow, but people like that. There are a variety of, so they have a Kirtan sheet which they give to the audience. And then, okay, we are going to have this Kirtan, this is the sequence. So now I'm not recommending this. I'm just saying that when there are specific rituals which are very strongly emphasized, then that puts off certain people. So the ISKCON for many people comes off as sectarian, that we are the only way or we are the best way, and that just doesn't work for many people who are more eclectic and people who are much more open spiritual seekers. So that is one big challenge. And now, so going back, continuing with Prabhupada's approach, we often hear of Prabhupada saying, I never compromise, my Guru Maharaj never compromised, you should never compromise. Those kind of confrontational statements of Prabhupada. But Prabhupada was not always like that. So there were two life members who helped Srila Prabhupada a lot in building the Juhu temple. And I have talked with Radhanath Maharaj and with Giriraj Maharaj about this. So both of these life members were actually initiated disciples of prominent Mayavadi gurus in India. And not just initiated disciples, they were leading disciples of those gurus. And in their homes, they would have prominent pictures of those gurus. So I asked Giriraj Maharaj, he says, I don't remember a single time when Prabhupada would go to anyone's home, Prabhupada would criticize what was on their altar. Many times Hindus, if you go their home, their altar is like a religious museum. Any and every deity is there. There is Krishna, there are demigod, there are semi-gods. You know what is semi-god? Semi-god is say-me-god. So there are gurus who claim to be God, and there are people who put their pictures on their altar. So Prabhupada did not criticize them. And so then, so these two life members, Prabhupada practically never talked with them about their affiliation with their guru. That was already there, but just because they were affiliated to their guru does not mean that they were not open to Prabhupada. They were appreciative of Prabhupada, and they were ready to contribute to Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada engaged them. So being bhavagrahi, not everybody may have commitment to like exclusive or total commitment to Krishna Bhakti, but still they may have some service attitude. They may have some openness, and that can be tapped. So, what happens in ISKCON, we have now I'm using the word ISKCON, I'm a part of ISKCON, but we have to have a certain level of self-criticality if we are to learn and grow. So we expect a very sudden leap from curiosity to commitment. It's like a very steep climb. That means we meet somebody, we are doing street kirtan, then we meet somebody, and that person also is very happy singing, dancing, and they talk with him. And they say, oh, this kirtan is so nice. I say, yes. Oh, we have kirtan every morning 4:30 a.m. Come tomorrow and come every day also. So from experiencing kirtan as nice on the streets, so from curiosity to commitment, we expect a very rapid leap. And that is a very steep incline up. But that doesn't happen. So there is a lot of cultural curiosity. There are some devotees who feel that Indian culture itself is the obstacle, and India itself, like ISKCON is very ethnically Indian, and because of that people are not ready to take a bhakti. There may be some validity to that, but that is not the major obstacle. It's like people have a lot of curiosity about Indian culture. What generally people are culturally curious, and they want to know about things, they want to explore things. So Indra Maharaj told me that once in their Polish festival, they started introducing these gopi dots and saris. So that's probably the most popular thing, among the most popular things. So people want to try out different things. It's like, okay, one day I want to wear a sari and try it out. Not every day I want to wear a sari. So you like wearing sari, start wearing it every day. That doesn't work like that. So it's like from curiosity to commitment. So people who have curiosity, let them have that curiosity. And if we can make it much more gradual, okay, explore your curiosity and let your commitment come gradually. So we start So this doesn't work. This is what is required. So in the eco village, when the eco village started, Radhana Maharaj had to tell the brahmacharis over there that don't tell these Western people who are coming here to chant. As just let them observe, let them experience. Chant means like take a japamala and chant japa. And when he saw some Westerners chanting with japamala, he asked them, "Who told you to chant?" Or he said, "No one. We just saw everyone. We asked, and we thought we also want to try it out." So Maharaj was very happy with that. So that non-pushiness, in fact, pushiness, pushing people upwards. Some people, like in India, those who already have a pious nature, if they're pushed, they come closer to Krishna. But most Western people, if they're pushed, they go away from Krishna. So we are quite infamous for being pushy. Our book distribution is also quite pushy. So that's the second aspect about Hari. Thank you for coming. So and the last part, which I find in my observation, okay, you sort of hear that. Okay, so say we have hierarchy, we have organized religion, especially which is to sectarianism, and which involves especially having very quick expectations of commitment from people. But the third thing that I find which people are put off by with respect to our outreach is criticism. Now, in one sense, it is related with the previous point, but specific it comes off as judgmentality. We say that bhakti is about giving up all labels, sarvopadi vinirmuktam. But then we have labels for everyone. This is a demigod worshipper, this is a Mayavadi, this is this, this is that. So we are very good at labeling people. And most people actually are too complex to fit into one particular box. So, for example, somebody may talk about something about impersonalism, oneness. Now, that doesn't make them a Mayavadi. That's just okay, they have that conception. Somebody loves walking in nature more than chanting. Oh, you are an impersonalist, you are not devotee, you should love chanting. It's like we are come off as very judgmental. And because of that, it's like, people are complex. I conclude this point. Now, if you consider an individual can have their gender is there, their nationality is there, their analytical, or they may be intellectual, their intellectual, how intellectual they are. They may have their particular ritual, or what you could call it as, they may have their particular practices. They may have their particular social values. They may have like that. People have many different aspects. People may have they come from a particular income level. They may have a particular intellectually, could say, they have a particular ideology. So all these we can go on with further. These are all parts of who they are. But what we do is we take one of these and make that as the entire person. And then we close, because we label the person in a particular way, then we lose out on that person. So this is especially, I've seen with respect to gender, it becomes a problem. Because this is also related to the hierarchy itself, that say in ISKCON conventionally, men-women had particular roles to play. Now there is a historical debate about whether the roles of men-women came from Srila Prabhupada's way he administered ISKCON, or it came from Indian culture when devotees started coming to India and observing how things were in India. There's no debate about that. But then Prabhupada has made certain statements about women in his books, so that can be quite triggering for people. So this judgmentality is there, and that's why one has to be a little bit restrained in. We look at certain attributes of people, and based on that, we immediately give them a label. So it's like, okay, a person has a particular ideology, like somebody chants Om instead of Hare Krishna. Oh, that means you don't have bhakti. We take that and their particular practice. Oh, this is the demigod worshipper. That's what we may do in India. Or somebody might be doing Mayavadi. So in the past, I would say in the last 15-20 years, ISKCON's attitude towards yoga has changed radically. In the past, we would just say yoga is mundane and yoga is people are just interested in bodily improvement, and yoga essentially means meditating on Krishna. That's what Prabhupada says. So there's a lot of dismissive attitude towards yoga, but we have now found that people who are practicing yoga, even if they are practicing it for, say, just improving their health, improving their looks, maybe finding a more attractive partner thereafter, even if those are their motives, still they are looking for something rajasic, even if they are rajasic in more passion, but they are doing it in a sattvic way. They could just be pumping chemicals in their body and applying botox and stuff like that to improve themselves, improve their looks, but they're not doing that. And to a large extent, the yoga audience is actually among the most receptive, or not most receptive, most potential demographic for us in our moment, for our Western outreach, and we are opening ourselves to them more and more. So I'll conclude with this point. Radhanath Maharaj told me that what the counterculture was in the 1960s when Srila Prabhupada went to the West, the yoga audience is now today. But there are two advantages. The counterculture was not regulated at all. They were heavily into drugs. The yoga audience is actually, to some extent, just the practice of yoga brings them some level of discipline. They may not be disciplined with their sexuality and other things, but there is a certain level of discipline that comes because of yoga. Yoga practice itself brings a certain level of sattva-guna. And secondly, yoga also opens them to appreciation of India. And so the counterculture, maybe the drugs, the idea of taking drugs for becoming spiritual came from India, where Shaivites take bhang and other things. But the Indian connection of drugs was not so much. It was more of LSD, which was certainly not Indian. So in that sense, the yoga audience is similar to the counterculture. And what Srila Prabhupada was able to do with the counterculture audience, the two positives are, they are somewhat sattvic because they are following discipline, and second positive is that they appreciate India because of yoga practices. So there's a huge potential, and we have here Rishikesh as the world capital of yoga. So this is the audience which we all can try to reach according to our capacities, according to our whatever opportunities we get. So all of you, I would say, the team that is here is at the at the front line of what Western outreach is possible for our movement, and I'm happy to be of some service in whatever way I can. Okay. So I'll just quickly summarize what I discussed. So I talked about primarily 4 points. So our theme was Western outreach, and in that connection I started by talking about speech, how we need to be sensitive and sensible, or we could put it such a way that we need to be gentle, not fickle. So in the name of being we don't want to be harsh or hard, but in the name of being fickle, we don't want to be no convictions or determination or commitment or whatever. So it's like we are firm in our practice with ourselves, and we are flexible with others. So how do we go about doing this? So this firm with ourselves, flexible with others. This particular theme, I talked about 3 things. One is hierarchy, how we need to be much more horizontal rather than vertical, with respect to authority and subordinate. And I discussed how the authority subordinate structure, it is non-essential or non-foundational to bhakti, because we discussed how Prabhupada engaged with the life members, and that how Prabhupada engaged with senior disciples also to some extent. Then I talked about organized religion, and especially with respect to organized religion, sectarianism that comes in. Now we may not be extremists in terms of violence, but I talked about how sectarianism, specifically in terms of the dogmas, the beliefs and the rituals. So how we lost out in the kirtan circle because of emphasis on particular things. Now I talked about Srila Prabhupada with life members to indicate how we don't have to impose our beliefs on others. The challenge is that sometimes the journey from curiosity, we expect a very rapid leap from curiosity to commitment for people, but this doesn't work. We need it to be much more gradual. So let people explore at their pace and then take it up at their pace. And the last point I talked about was about judgmentality or labeling, that because we quickly label people based on some beliefs or some practices, and we put people into boxes, and that's why people feel judged and strongly judged and alienated. So if we can be more open and let people explore at their pace. So what yoga is today similar to the counterculture. Now if Prabhupada had been judgmental, Prabhupada could have found 100 reasons to dismiss the counterculture people and the hippies. They were unclean, it is like their regulative principle was to break all regulative principles. That's what they were doing regularly. But Prabhupada, just as Srila Prabhupada with the counterculture was non-judgmental. Now, that does not mean Prabhupada didn't have standards, but that was not the prism through which Prabhupada saw everyone. So similarly, we with the yoga audience should also be non-judgmental, and we can be at the forefront of outreach if we can do this. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
So any comments, questions? Do we have time also?
Yes, of course. Govinda had some appointment, so he needed to leave, but Shyam was just, I think, sorting out some new people are coming to do something, so he will come back, I think.
Okay.
I was so happy to see, like how you say, how you present it very organized way, all of these topics, like logically. So it's really wonderful. I'm just wondering one thing that, I also noticed by observing different preaching outreaches, there is those who are little more conservative, they try to do it in organized way, infusing dogmas, rituals, and trying to indoctrinate people more in that direction. And then there is the other extreme usually that people are just very gentle and then go into that be oversensitive and not even inspiring people to start up some practices at all. They don't even mention it, and then those people always stay on the edge. They never move from that direction. And both of those approaches I consider a little bit extreme. Obviously, my personal, but how to marry those two things? To be able to make that gradual,
It is a challenge. I think every devotee is doing outreach. I don't know, you can use the word outreacher. In the West outreach, you don't use the word preacher so much. So every outreacher, if there is a word like that, will eventually find the audience that works, that gels with their particular mood. So I think there is, if somebody is very very vertical, and they also find some audience in Western outreach. It's not that they don't find. The problem is twofold. First is that initially some people come as an act of rebellion. They join the particular organized religion and they just want to completely adopt a different lifestyle. And they do it very enthusiastically initially, but whether they can sustain it lifelong, that's the question. So time will tell. So there is a disenfranchised or disillusioned demographic in the Western world who just doesn't care for the mainstream way of living, and they adopt that kind of thing. So there are many Europeans who actually joined ISIS,
IS?
the Islamic states.
Okay.
Like extremist Islamic organizations are violent also. So there are some interviews of those people, and what inspired them to join. They said this world is so confusing. It's just that we were what Islam, at least that version of Islam gave them is clear cut understanding. This is right, this is wrong. I don't have to think anymore in my life. If somebody is joining because of that reason, that's a dangerous reason to join actually. If I say I don't want to think anymore, then such people will become very ready tools for cultish leaders or for extremist leaders. So that's one challenge. We might get some people like that with very conservative. Very liberal approaches also will get some people, but as you said, they will not become very committed. So now there is serious discussion going on that maybe we need to have some level of affiliation before 16 rounds, because 16 rounds as a precondition for initiation is a lot for most people. 2 hours of sadhana is not easy. So there are some devotees who have started something called Namakaran, that somebody starts chanting 4 rounds, just give them a spiritual name, not like a formal initiation, but just a spiritual name. So it's not become mainstream and it's definitely not accepted by the GBC, but we may need something like that. So the way I see it is that so first principle is different preachers will find that particular demographic. So we need to see what inspires us. Is it that like some people are just inspired by the fact that so many people are appreciating Bhagavad Gita, so people are appreciating Kirtan. Some people may feel, no, what is the use of all this appreciation unless so people become initiated, people start becoming committed and start practicing, and so some people, that's what drives them, that's what inspires them. Now in the 7 purposes of ISKCON, Prabhupada has not mentioned initiation as one of the purposes. So now initiation has become a very important, functionally a purpose of ISKCON in the way we conduct ourselves. But so my point,
like social acceptance of people, they want to
Yeah.
be somehow accepted and
Exactly.
part of the community.
so it's like in Western outreach, what would be our definition of success? I talked this with Maharaj, and Maharaj is like through Journey Home and other things, he has reached a lot of people who would never have considered Krishna consciousness, ISKCON before that. Maybe Krishna consciousness if they experience it to some other group, but not through ISKCON. So they have become open to it. And the Govardhan Eco Village and the sheer number of Westerners who come to the Eco Village in December, Jan, that's one sign of success. But Maharaj Western Outreach also has not translated into success in terms of ISKCON's definitions of success. Like, it's not a large number of Western devotees who have become initiated disciples. There are a significant number, no doubt, but it's not a large number. So the way I see it is that we give people the practices. It's not that we conceal them. Appropriately at the appropriate forum. There are different ways in which when we communicate. There are broadly 3 ways. It is prescriptive. That is, you should do this. You should stop eating meat. You should chant the Hare Krishna mantra every day. Then the other is descriptive. That this is what I do and this is why I do it. So I don't eat meat because of XYZ. because I came to know how much pain and violence is inflicted against the animals while they are in the whole meat processing industry. So meat packing industry, as they call it. So descriptive. So prescriptive works for some people, but it's descriptive that works for Westerners. So the whole journey home's tone is descriptive. This is what I did. This is why I was doing it. This is what I learned from it. So sometimes if we don't even describe our practices, then it becomes a problem. So we do need to be descriptive, but then after being descriptive, do we become prescriptive at a particular time, or do we just leave it at that and let those who take it up organically come forward? So it may happen that a much larger demographic will appreciate and a few will adopt. So definitely we need to describe our practices. Otherwise, what are we doing? Like some very thoughtful devotees who are doing Western outreach, they give me this feedback that see, I focus a lot on psychology and the mind, and I try to present bhakti tradition through that. So a couple of devotees told me that, okay, at the end of the day, if I have come to a bhakti yoga class, what am I getting here that I wouldn't get in a Buddhist Vipassana class? What are you giving me that is distinctive from your tradition? So it's interesting. It was a good question, and in trying to make things accessible to people, are we losing out on what distinctive is, what our tradition has to distinctively offer? So, like in our retreat, I would say 90% of it was generic spirituality. It was not, there's very little direct bhakti in the retreat that I spoke. But towards the end, when I introduced chanting and I talked about that, the rituals and how kirtan works, that frequency, intensity, I talk about the intensity with which we chant mantras. There I brought in some bhakti. But so that was the introductory retreat. But I think there has to be a place where we do start being clearly descriptive. This is what we do, this is why we do it, and this is what we get out of it, or these are the benefits of this. And then we give more time to people who become more committed. So that principle of reciprocity, that those who commit more, we give more time to them. Those who commit less, we don't give that much time to them. Okay. Anything else?
It's really nicely what you said about phrasing it this way. I'm just wondering, like what we noticed here when
Can I have some water, Prabhu? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just wondering, like we were observing in April and May, like I mentioned, I think to you that like this retreat, it was great for people who came to your talks. That were like on Thursday, Friday. I think that was like really nice way for them to go more in depth, because then they feel that you give them some value, even though 90% then you were speaking about something that they could learn in some secular world or some other tradition, But because they were interested in bhakti. But when we were hosting like cooking workshops here, everyday cooking workshops, people who came just outside for the workshop because it's very attractive, they were not so interested afterwards to come to bhakti, to wisdom talks, or even to hear some other like more direct approaches. Vice versa, those who came for like wisdom talks and different things, when they came to cooking workshop, they got great value, but they were like more motivated to continue with with the process of bhakti. So I'm just like wondering, like, because we have all limited capacity, and this is also what I experienced being in Croatia. I was trying to broaden my outreach very much, but as much as you broaden even a little bit, it consumes a lot of your energy, because you need to put a lot of endeavor to facilitate that. So I was just wondering, like, how much should we broaden our first outreach approach? Second level of care, it's great to deepen that, but like to give them
so outreach can be broadly two things. One is get people interested. That means we trigger the interest of people. And the other is get interested people. So now Now, to get people interested, often we have to initially use them something which interests them already. Like we give them cooking, and from there we get them to bhakti. So, some devotees are really good at this, but it doesn't work very well. This get people interested. This is good for broad appreciation. Oh, these Hare Krishnas are good people. They also do some good things. They also have something valuable. Like how many people from the Govindas have become devotees? We don't know, but it has done served a lot of good purposes. But does it serve the purpose of making people devotees? No. But here what happens is, once you get interested people, then we address their multiple multiple interests, not just their devotional interests. What this means is that, like say, the way the Radha Gopinath community started was, we were clearly, Radha Maharaj was preaching bhakti, but after they started preaching bhakti, then as a community started coming up, then we had devotees who had children. The children needed to go to school. Then they started a school. Then devotees would get young, they were marriageable age, they had to get married. So then they created some marriage board or some marital forums or whatever, marital counseling and things like that. So, do we create support systems that people are interested in and then get them interested in bhakti, or do we create support systems for people who are already interested in bhakti? So in general, it is this way we get like steady commitment, steady dedication. It's much more narrower audience, in the sense that because we are already looking for interested people, but we do get steady dedication. So where have I seen the first approach lead to success? I can't really say. A lot of good reputation has come. Like,
People appreciate.
people appreciate. So, like the Govardhan Eco Village, a lot of people appreciate the eco-friendliness of the place. But I don't know whether any environmentalists have come there and become devotees because of that. So people in general appreciate that we are eco-friendly, and they love the proximity to nature and everything. So yeah, it's a. So do you feel you have enough people who are interested in bhakti directly here, or we have to explore?
It is. My only concern is like strategically, like if we would just focus on bhakti itself and not not spread, like we may be, like, how do you say, looked from the Rishikesh community itself like a little bit sectarian, because it's very strong community in Rishikesh, so people talk between each other. So we have enough people who are interested in bhakti who we can dedicate more time to. But like if we just do that, like the only, how to say, side effect of that would be maybe that people would start thinking in a way, oh, they are just,
So I think the key thing would be, there's a difference between being specific and being sectarian. Being specific, it's like we target a niche audience. This is the product that we offer. That is good. But when we criticize other products, that becomes a problem. So what I had talked with Maharaj about, the transition from yoga to bhakti. So he said most people, they like kirtans, but all that they know about bhakti is that it involves singing and it's about love. But beyond that, the philosophy, the specific practices, the sadhana, many of these things they don't know at all. So he wanted his book, Journey Within, to become like a textbook for Bhakti Yoga seekers, where people read that book and they discuss and they learn the concepts of Bhakti. Yeah. So that's where that, I think there's a broad appreciation for Bhakti. Now, I haven't observed Rishikesh a lot, like apart from whatever travels we have done and interaction with a few people. But considering the number of people who are coming for Kirtan, Mm. And then from number of people who come for wisdom talks is not large, but it's not small also. So it does seem that, so you could say the interest in the cultural aspect of bhakti, like kirtan. In yoga we have this many of people, kirtan we have this many people, and then wisdom we have this many people. So it does seem that you have a number of people who are interested. So it could possibly work. So we could be specific without necessarily being sectarian. If we don't criticize yoga per se.
And especially we offer yoga in ashram, like for people who come to the ashram, like who come to our experience. Because I'm not saying that, like what I was mentioning, like we should offer all of these things to support their journey and to give them that spread that they don't need to search out elsewhere. They can have those things with us. But that we keep it like further down the line so that we are not outreaching general public with that. That we are reaching general public with kirtan, with wisdom talks and those things. So that we get those who are interested and then give them the support. Like, okay, we have yoga, we have psychology, we have the cooking, we have all these other aspects.
Makes sense.
So that like, they don't go to the other places, because people tend to go to the other places to experience some other things. But we could give them all of that in the package.
And that's fair enough. If you can give them here itself. In many ways, if we can create as many opportunities for people to associate with devotees in non-preachy settings. There will be, of course, certain wisdom talks and classes, but apart from that also, like there is vertical in terms of giving knowledge, but there's horizontal also. People just hang out with devotees and they find that this is nice. They grow by that. Do you have any comment? Yeah.
I didn't catch now.
So, any comments about the overall talk? Anything?
Some other questions.
Ask some questions.
Yeah, I was just thinking how in terms like a Prabhupada, when he came and preached, and he was completely, there was nothing like a hierarchy. He was cooking for them. They didn't even notice. After a few days, they realized who's washing the plates. And they realized Prabhupada was washing the plates. He was serving them as a friend. Everything was based. He was completely like, when he came, he didn't establish nothing like this. So this first always approach to people should be very, very friendly. And then after, automatically hierarchy comes, Even if you have whatever you want to know, if you want to hierarchies, if you have something to give, it's automatically. But the thing is, these persons who are on the post of hierarchy, this is what is missing in our movement, is they're not trained properly. So they misuse this position. Instead of remaining this mentality of being a friend and giving other people that they can continue their journey, they misuse this and they become identified with this material position, and that's why we have now misconception in our movement what is hierarchy. But otherwise, Krishna has defined spiritual master as the best friend of disciple. So this spiritual master who is like he's always helping, he doesn't see himself as a hierarchy.
Correct.
But disciple, he has to his this vision, okay, this is a person whom I can get in my life. So these are both ways they have to be educated. But in our movement, now less and less is in the spiritual education of devotees, like Prabhupada was saying, we have to boil the milk. And now the movement is becoming bigger, there are positions, there is money, structure, religion, and this is a problem that we have from inside. So if we can educate devotees to go from Kanishta to Madhyama, so many things will be changed. Because devotee can be in movement for many years and can get, according to his conditional nature, some position, but he's in mentality, he's not on this level, then I see so many problems are coming up. So if we change this in our movement, education of devotees, rise their consciousness, then everything will be much better. We will not see ISKCON as religion or nothing like this, but as it is to give spiritual knowledge, but you need to have a structure, you need to have a hierarchy. But we will not identify it as a religion or a post. We will see it in a different way.
Thank you. Any last question, comment? Stephanie, you want to say something?
If Ramut doesn't have any more concrete to ask, I'm not having a question like for our actions here in Rishikesh, but when we go back and preaching in some other Western places, like we come from Croatia, Serbia, so Yugoslavian places. In Belgrade there was a very nice contemporary Bhakti hub, which was led by Radhanath Swami's and Satyananda Swami's disciples. It had really good, based on most of what are you thinking, but the other the problem was that devotees and the part of the community that was not that open to be flexible, let's say, to preach, because, like you said, a lot of cultural differences changing with the history, with the measure of time, and now, let's say they're not up to date. If we don't, let's keep it like on that level, so I don't go deeper into cultural differences from now in 60s and 90s, when the 80s, when the especially in the ex-Yugoslavian regions, the whole community started to flourish. They feeling like the community is separating. So how is it? Is there a way? For me, I see only two ways: either to just you do you and forget about half of the community, or how many parts of the people who are actually already initiated, and you just have a really strict place but don't do anything, or how to find actually some common ground to actually, because in all those countries there's not a lot of devotees, and like you said, it's like maybe people who are interested now into bhakti yoga are more like people who are generally more open to experience, not from conservative backgrounds, because Christianity has deep roots in all those countries. So people who have tendency to be really traditional, they just keep to their religion and find some other way, liberal to find it. But what to do in that sense inside of community, how to approach when the time and circumstances are asking for more flexible approach, and part of community is not like ready to make those adjustments.
It's become very clear that conventional ISKCON communities or conventional ISKCON temples will not be able to do Western outreach. So it's just too much cultural imposition comes in sooner or later. And I was talking with one American devotee, very intelligent devotee. He said, he came to a temple with his girlfriend. His girlfriend brought him to the temple, and we came in the same car. But when he came into the temple, we were told to sit separately. And he said, I was sitting separately, and I just couldn't make head or tail of what is going on. Or I couldn't ask anyone also, because she was sitting in another place. So he said, I told her afterward, I'm never going to come back again here. Then later on, when he was taken to Western Outreach Center where they could sit together, and she was explaining to him what is going on, this is. So it's a small thing, but it's a very big thing. Now, if you go to the Bhakti Yoga Rishikesh, ISKCON Rishikesh, there they will have men and women sitting separately. And that's just a norm. And it's not just ISKCON, any Hindu organization you go to, that's how it is. So that's first thing, that it's not going to work. So there has to be some separate forum for Western outreach, even in the West. Not the ISKCON temple. Now there are two visions, that this separate forum can eventually join with the temple. That means once people become serious in bhakti, then they start becoming a part of the congregation. The second is that they remain separate throughout. That there is separate initiation ceremonies for them, that they grow and they just become their own community. So Martin Luther King said that the hour of prayer is the most divided hour in America. What he meant by that is that people generally like to pray with people from their own backgrounds. So there is one church in New York, they have 7 services. And so they have a service for WASPs, white, Anglo-Saxon, Caucasians, whatever. And they have for blacks, for Latinos, they have a service for Indians, they have a service for Chinese people, they have a service for Irish people, they have a service for like that, they have 7 different services. And they have different pastors, they have different music at that time. So they change everything. So people generally like to worship with people from a similar background. So in that sense, maybe the eventual joining is possible, but it seems difficult. So somebody with the initiative to do Western outreach needs to create a separate space, at least initially. They need to be facilitated to create that space. So it's a challenge, no doubt. The Brooklyn Temple we have in America, and the Bhakti Center is not very far from the Brooklyn Temple. But the Brooklyn Temple has very few non-Indians coming there. And although some of the management are Indians, non-Indians, but they were already Prabhupada disciples or senior devotees already there. So Bhakti Center is actually very small infrastructure wise compared to Brooklyn Temple. But Bhakti Center is actually doing much more Western outreach. But the problem with Bhakti Center, which is very interesting now, is that New York is a very expensive place and devotees are not able to stay there for very long. So now Bhakti Center is also trying to do Indian outreach. So they have two websites. One is a Bhakti Center website, and the other is something like they're trying to create it like the only Hindu temple in Brooklyn, in Manhattan. I think Manhattan or Brooklyn, where is it? In that part of New York. That's the only Hindu temple, and certainly the only Krishna temple in that whole area. So they are getting I think the mayor of New York, Eric Adams, and a few others came there for Diwali because that was the only Hindu temple in that area. So they are trying to brand that way also, and so it's a challenge because for steady committed people they need Western people. Somehow they found that you couldn't keep them, so they are trying to get Indians. So it's a challenge. So but separation definitely is initially required. Eventually some kind of joining might be possible.
So in a sense, multi-branding and try to cover the both sides.
I don't know, cover the both sides means?
Like more conservative, like from the start, like by multi-branding you're covering people who are more serious or want to be more strict, and and the other one is maybe more like for
Okay, yeah,
program,
that's true. Yeah. So, but we have to have some level of what is the word? Not categorization, compartmentalization, demarcation. Demarcation has to be there. So, yes.
Just one practical question regarding our audience here in Rishikesh, because we are mostly focusing on Westerners, but there is also significant Indian population that are coming to our programs, especially in some off-season periods, like even though now it's less, but still it is there. So, and some of them are like real pious, some of them really would love to connect with us, like some of them are like really inspired by like Western things and everything. So I'm always questioning myself, how much like should we dedicate our time to them, or should we forward them to ISKCON Rishikesh who understand their mentality better, even though they are westernized?
Yeah, I was thinking about it.
So
see, like if you consider Puneet and Sashi,
yeah,
they're the two of them. She's a Westerner and she would not find any place in ISKCON Rishikesh.
Yeah.
So now, from what I talked with Puneet, I felt that he has some traditional values or some appreciation and some piety, but he also is not exclusively committed to ISKCON. So I don't think at this stage he will be able to fit into ISKCON Rishikesh, because there to some extent there some level of exclusive commitment is to be expected. So the way the Amrita Maharaj does it in New Zealand, he told me, is that they have like in Wellington as well as in Auckland, the two main centers he has, and they have a ISKCON temple and he has his lounge outreach. So the way when they go for distribution and they talk with people, they try to get a sense of the person, and if they feel that person is like, even from the accent, the speech, you can make out how much westernized that person is or how much Indianized that person is. So if they feel that the person is Indianized, they will give them the address of the local temple, and if they are westernized, they're a little bit westernized, even they are Indians, then they invite them to the Bhakti center, to the Bhakti lounge. And somehow, I don't want to sound racist over here, but it does seem that the steadiness of commitment and responsibility seems to be there in Indians much more. Now there could be various reasons. It's not that Western people are not committed, but maybe they are still in the exploratory phase a lot more. So many of the managers of the lounges, they are Indians. So in the Bhakti lounge, so we found that when Indians take up responsibility, they do take it up quite seriously. When they commit themselves, they see that this is They may not have very deep sense of religious piety, but they have some sense, like I'm doing this for God, I'm doing this for some higher power purpose. They take it seriously. So in that sense, you may have to select. But if you need to expand the team, Indians could be a part of the pool if they are little more modern. Like there is this India. I feel if you go to a city like Delhi or Mumbai, there are three civilizational ethos over there. There are some people who are from villages. They are still in like the pre-modern age, where the wife is like very super submissive to the husband and like that. So in Rishikesh you will see some family like that. Then there are many who are modern. They are rational. They use technology and they are a little more progressive. Then they are postmodern. They are into LGBTQ and all these causes and things like that. So it's almost like three civilizational ethos exist side by side. So not ethos, three civilizational generations, you could say. Or whatever generations in the West world.
Yes. So two concerns are for me in that case. Just don't want to also be racist, but two consideration is, can we assist those people who are coming from Indian culture with our approach, or would ISKCON Rishikesh assist them more? This is one concern. And the second concern is, if we start dedicating our time to them, more and more of them will be starting to come, and then it will become more like what you are saying now. Also different temples in the West, like it's becoming Indianized. More and more Indians are coming. So those are two concerns that I'm just
See, it's I don't know easy answer to this, but I feel it's if you can get some Indians who are based in Rishikesh, then they can become a part of your study team. If you start cultivating Indians who are from various parts of India, then that will take a lot of your energy. But some Indians who could be a part of the study of the team, so that could be helpful.
More based.
Like Satya Vasudev is there. Satya Vasudev? Yeah, Satya Vasudev.
But like in his specific case, I think that ISKCON Rishikesh would help him much more than we could do. In his spiritual.
No, I'm giving him no. So I talked with him. He was introduced to Rukmini and the Delhi temple through Amol Lila Prabhu and all those things. So I'm giving him as an example of a person who is based here.
Yeah.
Not he specifically.
Yeah.
Not he specifically. So you will have to consider those people also, their spiritual growth. But it does seem that some people like that for your team could be helpful. Those who find ISKCON a little bit more regimented. Now this is one challenge in our movement right now, that we don't have a facility for graceful lateral transfer. Like say somebody is working in Intel and they can't get along with their team leader. They don't have to be fired from Intel for that. They can just join some other team with whom they can have. So like that, transferring devotees who can't work well in one project to another project. The spiritual masters get involved and they do that. If their disciple doesn't work very well, can't get along in one temple, the spiritual master will take them to another temple. But within ISKCON, the managers are not on those terms. So they might get some person who might be more suited to this. So if they can send over here, if you can send over there, that could work. So that's something which we have not focused much energy on. So, but that's one thing. So, but it could be a part of the team. Now, how much it will help them grow, that's something which you will have to evaluate. But if you start spending too much time on Indians, your time, then wherever we focus energy, that there it will grow. So I don't think that's required over here.
Especially for those who are not here living in Taplovan, who are just coming and going.
See, Indian outreach in the Bhakti Center, they started for two main reasons. One was financial support. Because Indians who settle down in New York, if they are settled, they are obviously very wealthy, well-to-do. And anything to do in New York is very expensive. So the Bhakti Center has been supported for many years by some disciples of Maharaj who are helping him for that. But they would like to make it self-sustaining at least. And so that was one reason. Second is that now they are also looking for a steady, human resource, those who could take up leadership positions, those who could do volunteer work, all those things in Indian. So I think at this stage you don't have a crisis of finances, so that's not an issue. And second is, with respect to human resources, whether Indians will become that, you need to explore that. Otherwise, you can focus on Westerners if those concerns are not there.
Thank you for this.
You want to add anything? Lalitha, you want to speak something? I hope we didn't exhaust you too much with your health issues. Thank you. Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Tai Gaur Premanande.
Power went off, so switched
okay.
off and switch again. Thank you so much for your